Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 8, and then I would like to thank for the opportunity that has given to us to present our assignment with the title Information Processing Approaches. And I'm Nurmaharaeni as a moderator and second speaker. And then the first speaker will be Syamsul Bahri Prasetyo, and then the last speaker is Idhatul Hasanah. So before we get into the topic, first we have to know that the very heart of cognitive psychology is the idea of information processing. So cognitive psychology sees the individual as a processor information in much the same way that a computer takes in information and follows a program to introduce an output. So the first speaker, Syamsul Bahri, please, time is yours.
Okay, thanks for the chance for me. And then I will explain the material about the information processing approach in based on a number of assumptions. For the first, information mode available by the environment is processed by a series of processing systems. Two, this processing system transform or after the information in systematic ways. And third, the aim of research is to specify the process and structures that analyze cognitive performance. And four, information processing in humans resembles that in computers. Next, history of information processing theory. Developed by American psychologists, including George Miller in 19 and 5 information processing theory has in recent years compared the human brain to a computer. The input is the information we give to the computer or to our brains, while the CPU is like to our short-term memory, and the hard drive is our long-term memory. Our cognitive process filter information, deciding what is important enough to save from our sensory memory to our short-term memory, and ultimately to encode into our long-term memory. Our cognitive process include thinking, perceptions, remembering, recognition, logical reasoning, imaging, problem solving, our sense of judgment, and planning. Next, computer mind analogy. The computer gave cognitive psychologists a metaphor or analogy to which they could compare human mental processing. The use of the computer as a tool for thinking how the human mind handles information is known as the computer analogy. Essentially, a computer codes information, stores information, uses information, and produces an output. The idea of information processing was adopted by cognitive psychologists and a model of how human thought works. For example, the eye receives visual information and codes information into electric natural activity, which is feedback to the brain where it is stored, and coded. This information can be used by other parts of the brain relating to mental activities such as memory, perception, and attention. The output behavior might be, for example, to read what you can on a printed page. Cognitive psychology has influenced and integrate, integrated with many other approaches and areas of study to produce, for example, social learning theory, cognitive neuropsychology, and artificial intelligence.
Okay, the next stage is the process will be the process information will go to our brain. So the first one is stimulus. Stimulus is what we can hear, what we can see, and what we can taste, and etc. And then we will go to input processes, and then storage, and then it will uh, the result will be an output and responses. Information processing consists of a series of stages or boxes, which represent stage processing. A row indicate the flow of information from one stage to the next. So the next one, we will see the model of information processing. The first one we can see here is sensory input. Sensory input is that mentioned before, what people can see or touch and etc. And then go through a sensory memory. So sensory memory is the first stage of information processing. It refers to what we are experiencing through our sense at any given moment. So this includes what we can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell, and sight and hearing are generally thought to be the two most important ones. So after going to sensory memory, we can see here is unattended information is lost. So, for example, there are two informations. The first one is you think it's the most important and relative to ourselves, and then you don't pay attention to another information at the same time. So the unattended information might be lost, and then your information that you give your attention to will be go to short-term memory. Short-term memory is also called working memory. Here, the role of our short-term or working memory, information is filtered from our sensory memory into our short-term memory, where from there we process the information further, and some of information we hold in our short-term memory is discarded and filtered away once again, and portion of it encoded and stored in our long-term memory. So after we go to short-term memory, and here is the important one, maintenance rehearsal. So the information that you get have you have to do a repetition to uh, to store it to long-term memory. So here the explanation. Repetition is a crucial factor here. Here, if we want our trainees or our students to transfer crucial information from their short-term memory into long-term memory, we must repeat it more than once. So here, and unrehearsed information might be lost. So if we do not repeat the information in our short-term memory, it will be lost. So it will be encoding to long-term memory. And also in the long-term memory, some information may be lost over time. So the next one, okay, the next speaker, please. Times is yours.
Okay, let's move to the limitation of information processing. The analogy of the human brain and a computer is somewhat limited. As humans, our ability to learn and retain information is swayed by a variety of influence, from our level of motivation to learn to our emotion factors that don't impact computers. Computers also have a limited capacity in their CPU, while the human capacity for memory is unlimited, and the computer process things really serially, while humans have immense capacity for the parallel processing or digesting multiple places of information at once. Okay, let's move. There are certain strategy to ensure your audience understand a topic in depth. For the first, breaking up information into smaller parts. There's only so much information we can take on the board at once. So when you were training or teaching or telling someone else, you should move at appropriate pace, giving your learner and listener plenty of breaks and opportunity to process the information. The second, make it meaningful. People are more likely to return information that's meaningful to them by connecting into to real life scenarios to their our personal experience. The third, connect the dots. To optimize the change of material being retained in long-term memory, you should layer the material by providing sufficient background information and connection the current relation to what was previously learned and to what will be learned next. And the last, and repeat again. One of the simple ways to encode new facts into a long-term memory is to present it more than once. Repeating information in different form, verbal, writing, visual, tactical, is a great way doing this. Uh, I think enough from this presentation. I will back to the moderator, please.
So I hope our presentation will store in our long-term memory, and then in the next section we can go to our comment section below, and then you can give us the comment or suggestion or even conclusion and your questions for our group, and then we will try to kindly respond it. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.